Hello, Humanities 100 students. This is your teacher, Marsha Robinson, and I just wanted to check in with you for week 2. We have some great new things coming up this week, and I wanted to give you some quick tutorials for getting on the right track. This week you will be selecting an artifact that will be used for the remainder of the course for your final project. Check on the rubric associated with these to see the depth of the projects that are coming up in week 6 and week 8. But I wanted to give you some clues on how to select an artifact. First of all, what is an artifact? An artifact is a one-of-a-kind thing that is humanly created for an artistic purpose, not for a functional purpose. And in this case, the artifact that you're going to select does not necessarily have to match your own personal experiences or life or anything like that. It's just something that is going to be researched for your project. So I put together some topics and I went through the history of art and made some suggestions here. So take a look. Going way back, you can do something like the Great Periods of Giza in Egypt, ancient Greece, the Nike victory of Samothrace, Bronze Warriors, the Ryachi warriors, ancient Greece, Parthenon, another ancient Greek, the Roman Colosseum, the Column of Trajan, and literary works like the Epic of Gilgamesh or Homer, like the Iliad and the Odyssey. Stonehenge, the Tomb of Shi-Huangdi, the Terracotta Warriors, Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, Turkey, Book of Kells, the illuminated manuscripts, the Notre Dame Paris Cathedral. Sadly, this is before the fire, but still a worthy topic. Literary things like the Dante's Divine Comedy, the Boccaccio Decameron, Canterbury Tales, Chaucer. If you've never read the Decameron, one of my favorites, you learn a lot about the Black Death and the plague in Europe. Ancient works of the medieval era. There are some examples here, Giotto and Martini. And here's another Giotto. We can see some of the elements of the Renaissance coming in and expressing emotion there. Renaissance masters, if you are just wanting a generic mainstream artifact, there are many by Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci. You've got the David sculpture on the left, the Pietà, the Sistine Chapel. If you were to choose that, I would select maybe one picture from that chapel because it's too large. Or Leonardo da Vinci, like the Mona Lisa as shown, or the Last Supper, or the Vitruvian Man. And works that were secular in the Renaissance, like Botticelli, Primavera, or The Birth of Venus, also by Botticelli, or the Titian Reclining Nude, or Venus of Urbino. And here we have The School of Athens by Raphael. This is a very historic work, combines a lot of the concepts of the Renaissance. And then there are some very unusual works. The Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch, The Triumph of Death by Pieter Bruegel the Elder, and check those out. Very interesting, unusual, not mainstream, but quite interesting. El Greco's Resurrection, Albrecht Dürer, The Melancholia. Any of the works of William Shakespeare, and of course, if you chose something like this, you would select one sonnet or one play and then further examine and research that. Bernini sculptures. We're getting into the Baroque era now. Bernini is an amazing sculptor. I got to see some of his works at the Borghese Museum in Rome. It was just breathtaking how lifelike they are. And Caravaggio, famous paintings. He has this technique of light and dark that is just really breathtaking. Rembrandt, of course, you've probably heard of Rembrandt, and you can see the same dark and light techniques being used there in the Baroque era. Peter Paul Rubens, The Arrival of Marie de Medici at Marseille. Interesting photo. Women are painted in a much different way than they are in modern day. We have Poussin, The Rape of the Sabine Women. And we have Rococo era, The Swing by Fragonard, or The Hall of Mirrors at Versailles in France. This is something on my bucket list I got to do a couple of years ago when I toured France. Beautiful. Neoclassical art, you can see two examples here. Interesting how the neoclassical is showing some of the ancient Greek elements with the columns in the background. Romanticism, provoking and emoting emotion. The Third of May by Goya on the left. Or J.M.W. Turner, The Slave Ship. It's Delacroix, let me go back. Delacroix, Liberty Leading the People. This is a quintessential work of the French Revolution, full of emotion, but definitely tied to the cultural impact and the historical elements going on at the time. Realism, we've got Millet and the Gleaners, Courbet, the Stonebreakers. This was a shift in art toward the regular, ordinary people. Impressionism, light, color, movement. We see Claude Monet, Impression Sunrise, Renoir, Luncheon on the Boating Party. We've got post-impressionist art, where color is used symbolically. We've got Van Gogh and Starry Night. You've probably seen this a million times. Gauguin, The Yellow Christ. We've got iconic world structures like the Eiffel Tower in Paris, or the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona, Spain, one of my favorite things I've ever visited in my whole life. Memorials are great topics for things like artifacts because they are artistically made, but they also have a great connection to history and society. We can see 3 here, just a tip of the iceberg of some that are possible. Picasso. You've heard of Picasso before. Here are 2 of his most famous works, and you can learn about his method, but you can also realize the political connections and the message behind the works. And we have The Scream. You may have seen this before by Munch, or Klimt, The Kiss. We have some realist paintings of America, The Gross Clinic by Eakins and The Nighthawks by Hopper. You can see some works by Matisse, The Red Studio, The Goldfish. Surrealism, The Persistence of Memory by Dali. I'm sure you have seen this work before. Magritte, The Lovers. Photography can also be an artifact. I've chosen 2 of my favorites, The Migrant Mother on the left, quintessential work of the Dust Bowl era. On the right, the Kent State shooting photo. Even modern installations that are temporary, not even existing now, by Christo and Jean-Claude, The Gates in New York City. And pop art by Warhol. Some things to think about. And then some abstract expressionism by Jackson Pollock. Just some things that might be considered. And then finally, I've listed several songs that I feel represent an impact on culture in one way or the other, and you can slow this video to see maybe some details of what is there. And then finally, we see our modern Banksy. And then there are some that I did not do yet. There are things about the Harlem Renaissance or literary works that have made an impact, especially in the 20th century. The tip of the iceberg, it can go on, but I wanted to give you some tips and some suggestions for some ideas that you might select for your artifact, something that's one of a kind, artistically designed, and something that is connected to culture and history. Please contact me if you have any questions.